talking about the Port Arthur Memorial Titans. And like I mentioned earlier, this is a program that always seems to have a plethora of FBS dudes. So they went 8-4 this year under the helm of Brian Morgan, who's been there for a while. Fantastic coach.
Thanks to Coach Morgan for helping us prep for this segment, by the way. They do a tremendous job down there.
Yes. We're going to talk about 7 guys here that have kind of stood out to us. They graduated a few. I think most notably, defensive lineman Michael Riles from Oklahoma State. Wide receiver Samaj Pierre, he's going to Rice. And then defensive tackle Tavion Chapman, who's going to Houston Christian. So a lot of key guys that that have graduated and moved on to play at the next level. But I would argue that this upcoming class is the same, if not more impressive.
This is their money class. It's been their money class. I didn't get to watch PA Memorial last year. I watched them in the playoffs against Forney at the end of the 2023 season, and that's where this class of 2026 guys, they were really starting to come into their own, led by linebacker Tank King.
Tank King's a dude.
I love Tank King. Tank King has, I think he's got over 30 scholarship offers already, or right at 30 scholarship offers, been offered by all the top teams. What I love about King's game is that he's kind of, to me, been a throwback style linebacker. He was a day one varsity starter as a freshman, a guy that kind of walked through the doors there and established himself as one of like the marquee names in that area in Texas high school football. But he's advanced his game because he reads and reacts very well. He gets off of blocks very naturally, has strong hands, and when he arrives at the ball carrier, he arrives at the ball carrier with bad intentions. Mm-hmm. And I love to see a linebacker when they hit somebody on tape, you can almost feel it through the tape. And I think that that's pretty much a prerequisite. If you're going to be a P4 level linebacker, when you tackle somebody, it has to be bone jarring.
Right.
It can't just be like, going out there and tapping somebody. Tank King epitomizes bone-jarring tackler, and I love that about his game. On the recruiting front, King has got some really intriguing options, and we're going to start in-state. He's got an official visit scheduled with Texas A&M for June 5th, and he's got an official visit scheduled with Texas on June 13th. And I'm also keeping a close eye on Notre Dame. That's a school that I think has a legit shot at landing his services as well, so it'll be interesting to see when he visits South Bend, and if the Fighting Irish, underneath of Marcus Freeman, who was one of the game's best linebackers when he was playing. So I imagine that Coach Freeman has a pretty good pitch in store for Tank King whenever he arrives there to check out the Irish.
You want to talk about another King? Not related. Completely unrelated. No relation to Tank King there, but it's 2026 cornerback Brock King.
Yep.
5'10", 178 pounds, 20-plus offers from the big-time guys. No official visits scheduled yet. I looked at his social media, hasn't posted anything. 247 hasn't posted anything. But I really liked his tape when I watched him. He's listed as a corner. I think he's got great qualities to be a corner. He's got good footwork, and he stays glued to his man, whoever he's covering there at the time. And he just kind of gives receivers a really, really tough time. But what I also like about him is that not only does he play corner, but he plays a little bit of running back too. And he plays on KOR and punt return as well. So very versatile. I like that a lot about him. I
love him because he's quiet. And when I say quiet, I mean you don't hear anything from Brock King because teams don't want to throw at him. And whenever I throw a corner out there and I think, I'm going to throw this guy out at corner and nobody's going to throw on that side of the field, as a coach, that gives me a certain level of comfortability.
Yeah.
And when I have Tank King in the middle of the field, they're not really wanting to run at Tank King, and they're not really wanting to throw at whatever side I put Brock King on.
This defense is scary, man.
And last year they had Michael Riles coming off the edge and Tavion Chapman. But anyway, all right, to get back on track of Brock King, he's a quiet, confident cornerback who you don't hear a lot of because all he does is lock down his side of the field. That's why, as you mentioned, it is fun to get to see him go and play some of these other positions because you get to see his athleticism and his special qualities. talking with our sources over at this one's wide open. Like, this is a recruitment that's wide open right now. Anything could still happen. He's got some of the top dogs on him. Some of the top programs are in the mix, and it'll be interesting to see where ultimately he lands, because I feel like he is in the thick of one of these dynamic recruitments where you have a school like Texas, who's a top dog on your list, that's one of the top programs in the country, and how their recruiting puzzle fits with you and how you fit with them. It'll be interesting to see how all that unfolds for Brock King, because he could play. He's visited Texas an awful lot, so that's one of the programs. Baylor in-state is another school to keep an eye on, but he's got like a national offer list. So just interesting to see what he does.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on the Kings there.
Yeah, no relation.
No relation. Let's move to the offensive side of the ball. We'll start here with 2026 offensive tackle Michael Milson. 6'4", 270 pounds. Really great frame there. And what I liked about his huddle tape, he's listed as a tackle, obviously, but I think he's also has that fluidity to where he can play a little bit of guard too. He's flexible there on the line. Really strong hands, and I just really like the way that he plays. Yeah,
extremely athletic, and that's the first thing that jumped out to me. You mentioned his frame. Like, he's a first off the bus type of kid. Mm-hmm. Even as a sophomore, when I watched him live, like, you clearly noticed Milson right away. Riles was super impressive too, the defensive end who went to Oklahoma State from the 2025 class. But Milson was just like I just started snapping photos of him like instantly. I was like, oh well, I didn't know who he was. I didn't have my roster yet.
Like, that's a big dude. I'm gonna take some pics.
You knew instantly sometimes when you see him. I didn't know that he was a sophomore, so I was happy to find out that he was a young player. Another guy whose recruitment that I feel like is kind of wide open. Two programs I feel like to keep an eye on that have offered so far, at least in my estimation, are Baylor and Kansas in the Big 12. I think maybe in this region, the Big 12 region or the Texas region, I would watch programs in that area for Milson.
Well, he's got an offer from Houston too as well.
Yeah,
I think so. A couple of Big 12 programs, especially in-state Big 12 programs, to keep your eye on there.
No doubt about it.
Michael's recruitment. All right, we'll talk about some skill players here a little bit. Let's start with 2026 running back Amante Martin. And you told me yesterday, and I also looked this up too. I read some articles, so I thought it was super interesting. But he is the brother of Cam Martin, who was a former Auburn running back coach and is now an assistant coach at UCF, I believe. 5'11 and a half, 185 pounds. He's got quick feet and really good change in sudden direction. Like, he'll be heading straight one way through the pile, but then a defender comes up and he's easily able to steer into a different direction on his feet and kind of create an open.
I wanted to check our Cam Martin facts, because coaching changes happen so fast and furious during this time of year.
No, you're right.
I wanted to make sure that, so I don't want to date myself, but I rated Cam Martin when he was coming out of PA Memorial.
You just dated yourself.
I dated myself somewhat. I also dated myself when I tweeted out videotape that I filmed of 07 Gilmer versus Mineola tape. That was the first night I met UTSA head coach Jeff Traylor, and shout out to Gilmer, who served chili in the press box that night. But getting back to Amante Martin, Amante is completely different than Cam. I would have described Cam as more of a running back who liked to put you on skis, and Martin has some of that ability, but he is a guy who will flat out run you over. He's tough in the middle of the field. You saw that on his first highlight run as he scored a touchdown right up the middle, and he loves to live there. He slides in and out of tackles pretty effortlessly, has a natural feel for the game, and I think that gives him a competitive edge. He shows glimpses at times that he can completely take games over, and we talked about a loaded running back year. Amante Martin definitely helps shine the spotlight on that, because he's a 3-star right now that could be rated as a 4-star type of kid. He has all the skills in the world and has a lot of top colleges chasing him.
And he's got a couple of official visits scheduled, one at Oklahoma State, June 19th.
That'd be a great fit.
I think so too. The next Ollie Gordon, am I saying?
Yeah.
Kansas State on May 29th, and then Tulsa on June 6th. I believe that was his most recent scheduled visit.
Yeah, and even when I close my eyes and think about you said those, he seems like the Kansas State, Oklahoma State type of running back that people may sleep on ever so slightly. They shouldn't, because he's got a name and he's like a known commodity, but goes and blows it out of the water once he gets to college at one of those types of schools.
Correct. Moving on here, let's talk about 2026 wide receiver Kevin Roberts. I actually got to talk about him a couple weeks ago when I was talking about Houston.
Committed to Houston.
6'4", 175 pounds. He's really long and lanky. When you look at his tape, like he kind of has that build of a basketball player.
Well, he is a basketball player.
He is a basketball player. You look at his huddle tape, and it's all basketball right now. But what I think is really interesting about him from the tape that I have seen is that obviously he uses his height to his advantage, and he can high point that ball and win those 50-50 battles.
Coaches there are extremely excited about his potential and what he's already displayed within their offense. When you have a 6'4" guy that you can put in the vertical passing game, you can kind of just throw it up to him and let him go and make plays. And I think that as he gains experience and gets in a college strength and conditioning program, he's one of these guys with an extremely high ceiling. And I think that's why you see the Houston Cougars taking an early commitment from him. And I think that's something to really tell recruiting fans that are watching this show, maybe for the first time, the difference between what a offer is and what a committable offer is. A committable offer means that you can pick up the phone, call that school, and make a commitment right now to that program. And obviously Roberts was in a position to do that with UH. Schools are taking a little bit less high school talent out of each class now. So where it used to be you think about a school signing in between 20 and 25 guys, I think right now you got to think about it being around 15 guys for most schools in any given year, because they will leave some space for the transfer portal. So Roberts obviously sat very high on the UH recruiting board, and it's because of that athleticism and upside. He could be a true freak, a guy that develops into an NFL draft pick one day.
I think so too. And man, if Houston can also keep Keyshawn Henderson too, they're building a quite
it's a good
fun 2026 class so far.
It's a good recruiting class. Aaron Wolford from Port Neches Groves, I love him.
Great offensive lineman. He is so much fun to watch. But all right, let's keep the trains on the tracks here. We'll talk about some younger guys. Class of 2027, safety Jamarcus Hudson, 6'3", 180 pounds. He's been offered by UCF, Sacramento State,
there you
UNLV,
go.
and Lamar. Man, Sacramento State.
Shout out to Sac State.
Shout out to Sac State, man. And Brennan Marion, too, their head coach there. He's got some Texas ties, but they are recruiting Texas so heavy right now. And one of the guys that they've most recently offered is Jamarcus Hudson.
Yeah. They said he's got next. And whenever you tell me that and you're at PA Memorial, that's all I need to know. Because you watch his tape or pop it on and you can see that he is kind of like as advertised. He's one of these guys who I feel like his recruitment is about to take off in a huge way in the spring evaluation period. He is like the mold. You break the mold when you make a safety like with his attributes. So I'm excited to see what the spring holds for him.
I think so too. One more 2027 kid we want to talk about, offensive tackle Brandon Abair.
Yep.
I remember to say his name correctly.
6'4", 270, and an
sophomore.
Extremely high ceiling on Abair. You're not going to find his tape on his huddle or anything like that. You're going to have to go out if you're a college coach and see him in person. And I'm going to hedge my bets if you do that you're going to make an offer. So go on out and book your trip with Coach Morgan to go see PA Memorial this spring.
Did you see, do you know how long his wingspan is?
You tell us. This sounds like Hartley breaking news.
85 inches.
Wow. And that's why the coaches said when coaches come through here, they're going to offer him right away.
He's a big dude.
That's awesome.
He's a big dude. So
see, look at you uncovering a recruiting gem right there.
You know me, always uncovering the recruiting gems here. Little crew. But yeah, we're super pumped to keep our eyes on Port Arthur Memorial. They've got just a ton of dudes every single year, but this class seems kind of special. So I'm sure they'll be just fine.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch because they're a state championship contender in my estimation with all that talent.
I feel like they always are too because they're in such a great area. You know, like they have they've got tough competition. I mean, with Galveston Ball and stuff, I believe in their district. But I mean, they're always in a great position to make it to a good point in the playoffs.
Well, and this talent that they've been having there, they're going to be seniors now. Mm-hmm. You know, they've been playing since they were freshmen. They should have good camaraderie together. They've kept that group together. So I'm really excited about what 2025 has in store for them.
I think so too.